Lux your way with the Lux Cravings boxes from Taco Bell. There's the classic $5 box, the indulgent $7 box, and a whole new obsession in the $9 box, the Flamin' Hot Grilled Cheese Burrito. Try the Lux Cravings boxes at Taco Bell today.
Hey Bronco Nation, this is Boise State football wide receiver Ben Ford. I've had to face some setbacks on the field this past season, but toughness isn't about staying down. It's about getting back up. I am proud to represent Lithia Ford of Boise, where you can find the largest selection of Ford trucks that are built tough and, like me, handle the hits and keep pushing forward. Come check out the incredible inventory and competitive pricing at Lithia Ford of Boise. And when you buy here, you're not just getting a truck, you're supporting Boise State athletics and Lithia Ford NIL partnerships. Come see us at Lithia Ford of Boise, where Ford begins in Idaho.
Find your sun with Sun Cruiser Vodka Iced Tea. Made with real iced tea and real vodka. Cold, refreshing, and made for moments like these all year long. Let the good times cruise with Sun Cruiser.
As sports fans, we may cheer for different teams, but there's one thing that we can all agree on. We want the game to be big. And with 3 levels, 30 cabanas, a 143-foot screen, 6 clean pools, and endless cold drinks, it doesn't get any bigger or any better than Stadium Swim in Las Vegas. All sports, all seasons. It's more than a pool deck. Stadium Swim. It's the only thing like it in the world.
The final buzzer is sounded on another night of Mountain West basketball, and it's time to break down the action with Tom Moser on another night in the Mountain West, presented by Circa Sports. Headed to Las Vegas for the Mountain West tournament in March? Make sure to stay at Circa Las Vegas and watch all the action at Stadium Swim, where the sports are on 365 days a year. Another night in the Mountain West has interviews, analysis, opinions after the final Mountain West basketball game of the day wraps up. All BNN broadcasts come from the Sun Cruiser Studios. Sunny days call for Sun Cruiser Vodka Iced Tea, made with real iced tea and real vodka. It's refreshingly smooth and easy to drink. Crack open a Sun Cruiser and let the good times cruise. The title sponsor of Bronco Nation News is Lithia Ford of Boise. Check out our full inventory of vehicles online at lithiafordboise.com. Lithia Ford of Boise, where Ford begins in Idaho. Did your team just get a big win? Suffer a bad loss? Come discuss it with us. Send us a comment or question in the ICCU YouTube chat, or leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/BNN. Now let's go to the Sun Cruiser Studios and join Tom Moser for another night in the Mountain West on Bronco Nation News.
What's up, everybody? You are here on another night in the Mountain West, Sunday, Selection Sunday edition, March 15th. Let's thank Sun Cruiser. Again, been along for the ride the entirety of this show here, along with Circa, but got another couple messages yesterday. One buddy of mine, some other random people on social media showcasing their purchases and finding Sun Cruiser everywhere. It's spreading. So appreciate that. Appreciate them. Appreciate all of you guys doing that. And I guess you can still subscribe, right? Picked up a bunch yesterday and the whole weekend here, even though we're winding down our episodes at Mountain West BNN. You can subscribe down there at Mountain West BNN. So obviously a disappointing day on a few fronts when it came to the selection show. So we'll talk about that from the Utah State angle, from the San Diego State angle, a little bit with New Mexico as well. At the back end, I'll work in some NIT clearly, as that has seemingly become now a mid-major. I don't want to call us a mid-major league, but a non-Power 4 tournament, and the Mountain West is well represented there. And so we'll talk about that for a little bit. Not sure how heavy the comments will be. I think there's a couple in here right now. Not sure that this will be as fired up as it was all season. That's okay. I can just kind of go on my rants and talk about things. But so I think the way I look at it now with the schedule, what I'm thinking is it's unlikely that I will do a show regardless of what happens on Friday with the Utah State game. So I'm hoping that they win. Obviously, I'm hoping that they win, but hopeful that they can get a win. And if that takes place, then they would play Sunday against Arizona, which would, well, I'm assuming it would be Arizona, right? Which would, since it's out west, be a little bit later. And I would maybe come on Sunday night then. Look, I hate to say it, but like assuming that does not go super well, and just as far as wins or loss, maybe they're more competitive than they were 2 years ago against Purdue. I would hope so, right? That's not a very high bar to cross, but assuming they can keep that game somewhat competitive. But regardless, you get to that point on later on in Sunday, there's only about 20 teams playing left at that point in the tournament. So that's quite an accomplishment. Now, I know I'm getting ahead of myself here because they didn't win yet. That's why I said if, but I may come back on Sunday after that game, wrap that up, and talk about some other things going on in around our teams here. So, but beyond that, we'll have to see. No guarantee anyway. And so I'm going to enjoy this one. Kind of wrapped a lot of stuff up this week here with you guys and gave you guys a lot of shout outs and took in a lot of your kind comments as well. So who knows? You know, it seems unsettled because there's no guaranteed extra episode or whatever. Hopefully, if Utah State wins on Sunday, well, we'll do an episode and then you can bet your butt that we'll do an episode for every game beyond that. But that seems like that's going to be a little bit too high of a mountain to cross. Arizona's a behemoth. You see many people picking them to win the whole thing, let alone getting out of their region. So we can get to that later. The fact is that the Aggies do get in as a 9 seed. Now, I know there was a lot of discussion that the 9 was not super. And like for me, I get it. Like you probably don't deserve a 9 seed, right? But the fact is, we all know the drill. The conference is underseeded perennially. They are underseeded. Okay. Doesn't matter if you get one team like this year, you get 4 teams like last year, you get 6 teams in like it was 2 years ago. That season 2 years ago, basically every single team, with the exception of San Diego State, was underseeded. And so the committee turns over largely, right? Every few years or whatever it is. Okay. But it's not just an anti-Mountain West thing. It's an anti-non-Power 4 thing. The problem is, or the issue is, that no other conference that's not a Power 4, well, I guess you can consider it a Big East in there too, so non-Power 5, has this type of representation or quality of play to get this many teams in there. Okay. And so if the Missouri Valley or the A10 or the AAC or any of these other conferences that aren't Power 4 would get multiple teams, they'd all be underseeded too. Now, the only exceptions are your massive, like, brand name schools like Gonzaga, who's going to another level. We all understand that. But like a San Diego State and like a Memphis. Now, Memphis crapped the bed this year, didn't even make the tournament, but they're always in that. Like last year, CSU knocked them off on I think it was Friday in the first round. Yeah, it was Friday because they lost the game to Maryland on Sunday. But so Memphis was a 5. They didn't deserve a 5. And in fact, if you guys recall, CSU was actually favored in that game over Memphis in a 12-5. Okay, so Memphis has the name brand and the cachet that San Diego State does. But any other team in those conferences, no shot. So when they get in, you get underseeded. And that's the fate that Utah State has now received 2 out of the last 3 years, okay? Last year, I think they were a 10. They played in a 7-10 against UCLA, and they had floundered down the stretch, so there really wasn't much beef with that, I don't think. I don't remember a lot of it. 2 years ago, they certainly could have been out of that 8-9 game, should have probably been in a 7-10. This year, I think they should have been an 8. Most bracketologists on Twitter, and they got a lot of stuff right. They got the whole field right, pretty much. It seemed to be easy, I guess. There were no surprises, which we needed a surprise this year. Every year, there's usually a big surprise that they don't see coming. And I like to think that the committee does it on purpose because they don't want all these so-called like amateur bracket guys getting everything right and seeing and acting as though it's an easy job to do, because it's not. Right? We rip things to shreds and criticize things, but that's what we do as fans. It's easy to do. But there's usually a curveball, and there wasn't this year. But all of those same people had Utah State as an 8 seed. Okay. Now, that's why I'm not really upset about it. If they would have dropped from a 9 to a 10, I would actually have been happy about it because, yeah, it gets you a slightly tougher first round game, 7-10, but it gets you an easier second round game. These ones are behemoths this year. They're juggernauts. And the 2s, while they're still good, you will probably see a 2-seed upset in the second round this year. It happens every year. Like St. John's got upset last year. I can't remember like every year going beyond that, but they get upset almost every year in the second round. Or in the first round. Wait, what am I talking about? In the second round, okay? Now, it does happen sometimes to 1s, but it's a lot less likely, okay? And so I'm sure Aggie fans would have rather had a 10 than a 9 because it gets you to that easier game on Sunday. But there's really no difference between the 8 and a 9. So that doesn't really bother me as much. And the fact of the matter is, I don't know that they deserved a 7. I know some people want to criticize like St. Mary's. I went back and looked at their resume last night. I'm far from a bracket geek. Like, I don't really get into the metrics and stuff. I'll do what they used to do like in 1992, right? You look at the schedule, you see who they played, you kind of eyeball it and think, that's a good win. That's a bad loss. That's a pretty good win. They didn't play anybody. And you do it like that before all these metrics got introduced, right? Well, I look at Boise's schedule. They lost 5 games. They lost once to Gonzaga. They also beat Gonzaga. They lost twice to Santa Clara, also a tournament team. They lost to Vanderbilt, who made the SEC title game today and is a 5 seed and was underseeded. They probably should have been a 4. And then their worst, which isn't bad, but their worst loss was a loss to Boise on a neutral court. So those are their 5 losses, right? Now, do they have a ton of great wins? No, but they beat Gonzaga and they have no bad losses, okay? So, like, I hate to say it, but that's probably a better resume than Utah State, right? Like, Utah State wins in the pit, right? They beat San Diego State twice, but they're not a tournament team. Neither was New Mexico. Their MTE didn't provide them anything. They did beat VCU on a neutral, who was a tournament team, so that's a good win. But obviously, when you're the only team that gets hit from your conference, you're not playing a whole lot of games against tournament teams, unfortunately. Okay, that other game, that Illinois State team that they got to come to a neutral in Utah, they ended up fizzling out, so that didn't end up doing much for them. We all know the drill at Memphis. This was their worst season in who knows how long, so that didn't do anything for them, and it just didn't work out for them schedule wise. Okay, so someone said Kentucky, well, they were bad this year. Well, I looked that up too. Kentucky has wins over Vanderbilt, Tennessee twice, St. John's, and Arkansas. So it's like, I know they might have a bad loss or 2 in there, but that's the built-in unfair bias, not really bias, but just the way it is for teams in our conference. Okay, those teams get to play the teams that help their resume every week. We don't. And so you have to take advantage of them. And if you're Utah State, you can't lose twice to UNLV. You can't. I mean, if they lose one of those, maybe they're an 8 seed. Doesn't do much, not much of a difference, right? You wear a white jersey instead of a blue one now on Friday. You needed to sweep those games and be a 7 seed then. That's the unfortunate fact of the matter there, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, the other thing of it is this, right? Because I get it. Like, we've heard it all from New Mexico fans, from Utah State fans, from other fans too. It's difficult in this conference to schedule good teams, whatever, right? San Diego State, the exception. So however you got to do it, you got to get yourself to the level of San Diego State. I guess you do that by winning more in the tournament. San Diego State, before the Final Four run, the national championship game that they made in 23, they had tough first-round losses in 21 and 22, Syracuse and Creighton, all right? Brutal games, could have, maybe even should have won, but definitely could have won both, if not one, for sure. We all know what happened in the COVID year. Final Four contender, would have won several games, you have to assume. Didn't get to play it, unfortunate. Lost their first round game in 18, I believe. I don't know if they even made it in 19. I can't remember. I don't think they made it in 19. Lost in the first round in 18. I think they were in the Sweet 16 in 2014 and maybe 2011 with Kawhi Leonard. So, and they won another, but they didn't have a massive history. Couple Sweet 16s, and then, of course, 23 and 24, national championship game and Sweet 16 back-to-back. But like, they had built up enough of cachet within their name and their program and the style that they played and the consistency within the coaching staff that they were able to attract good a non-conference competition. Okay. Utah State is, for whatever reason, they're not there yet. Maybe it's due to the coaching turnover. Like, honestly, it could be. Okay. Like San Diego State's had Fisher and Dutcher for 25 plus years. All right. And it's been a pretty good recipe. Meanwhile, and it's a good thing on one end that it shows that you can do it with different guys, but Utah State goes through coaches like water. Okay. And so maybe that plays into it. I don't know. But the Aggies have to find a way to schedule differently then if they want to get seeded differently. Because as I said 2 years ago, every team in the conference was underseeded by one, if not two lines. Boise was thought to be in the 8-9 game. They end up in a freaking play-in. CSU, same thing, probably not figured for a play-in by anybody in the play-in. Nevada as a 10, underseeded. Utah State 8-9 game, underseeded. And there's San Diego State, who, didn't even win the league or the league tournament, right? Didn't win either. And they're there at the 5 seed. Okay. Now I can't remember all of their non-cons that year. They did lose to Grand Canyon. There was no players era that year. Last year was the first year for that, but I'm sure they beat somebody in the non-con. They might've beat Gonzaga actually. So obviously that helped, but my point being a lot of it is the name recognition, and that it carries a lot of weight. And yes, Utah State, as I mentioned in here last night, has been more successful in the last few years in the regular season than San Diego State, but they got to carry it over into the postseason here, and it's got to start somewhere. You have to pull that upset over Arizona the way that San Diego State did over Alabama 3 years ago, right? Because if they lose that game to Alabama, well, then it was a Sweet 16, yes, but it was a Sweet 16 beating a 12 and a 13, and you don't beat Alabama, you don't beat Creighton, you don't get to the national championship game. So it's like, that's what you have to do. Is it a big upset? Heck yeah, it's a big upset, but go do it. Go do it, because not a lot is going to change next year. I know a lot of fans of Utah State and San Diego State and CSU and Boise. They're expecting things to be a whole lot different next year when they're not in the Mountain West anymore. Okay, on a lot of fronts, TV exposure, tip times getting pushed back, officiating, underseeding, and let's just wait until there's some actual tangible data on that before we start running to the rooftops with that stuff, because I don't know if that's going to happen, right? I have no idea. Who knows if that's going to happen, right? I've said this before, largely many of the officials are going to be the same. They just are, like it or not, right? The tip times and TV, I can't remember the maybe, I guess if some of the games are on, was it USA, right? I think maybe you have a good setup there where you're looking at when it says 10:05, 8:05, it actually means that because they don't have a game coming on before that. So that would be nice, right? But as far as the underseeding stuff, it's still a non-power 4. And I know Gonzaga's in the league, okay, but I just don't think it's automatically going to be like, ooh, because it's got the Pac name attached to it, that they're going to be like, oh, let's see these guys better now. I don't, because it's not a knock against the Mountain West. It's a knock against all non-power 4s. Okay, this was my initial point when I started this rant 10 minutes ago. The fact is that no other conference scarfs the bids up like we do outside of the Power 4. 5 if you include the Big East. And so they don't get the opportunity to get underseeded. It's like one team, right? And that nobody pays attention to it. We get bid after bid after bid, and it infuriates fans of the power schools, but we get underseeded. So, I don't know. I'm not sure but so look, for Utah State, certainly a winnable game against Villanova. Okay. Travel advantage for the Aggies, familiarity advantage for the Aggies, playing in an arena that they play in every year. Didn't fare well this year, but they've played there, okay? Villanova's got to fly across the country. I know it's a late afternoon start here, so it's like an early afternoon start out there. So not a massive body clock advantage, but still, they're flying across the country, okay? As I said to somebody else, it didn't really work a few years ago. There was when I believe in Odom's last year, before Sprinkle got there in 2023, they played Missouri, and I think it was like an earlier tip out west, and I thought it was like a really early body clock start for Missouri, and I thought that was a big edge for the Aggies, and it didn't matter. I don't know if Odom had one foot out the door. Missouri played really well. They ended up losing in the next game which was frustrating. But I thought that was an advantage there for the Aggies, and it didn't turn out being that way. But look, it can't hurt, right? Like, it can't hurt. Your opponent is flying across the country. I haven't looked. I don't remember where they played in their MTE this year, but I doubt they've gone west. They probably went south somewhere, right? First year coach. They were okay this year. They were okay, but the Big East was down. UConn and St. John's, and that was about it. Nova, the third and final bid for the Big East. St. John's and UConn are obviously very well-coached teams, but this doesn't seem to be Hurley's best team. And Pitino has got a good unit, and he's a great coach. I don't know how good they are. I don't watch a ton of Big East stuff anymore, and the conference wasn't very good this year. So Kevin Willard, first-year coach. Unfortunately, the coach had ended CSU's season last year before he bailed on Maryland for the Villanova job. That was a big hot-button issue in that game. Good coach, but like this is just one of those like power teams they got a decent record and they're not bad, but they're not great. And if Utah State shows up to play, they can win the game. Now, I don't know that I've watched a ton of Nova to kind of at this point, without looking them up a little bit, know what their strengths and weaknesses are. How will they handle the Aggie defense? What is Calhoun going to do? Is he going to throw some matchup? Is he going to switch his man? What is he going to do? If the Aggies buy in and play defense the way they played the last 3 days, they'll have a very good shot. I think Nova has a pretty electric like freshman guard, Lewis. They have a couple transfers. Obviously, it's a improved team because they were horrible the last few years, and that's why they changed coaches. Their coach was awful, but they haven't been in a tournament for a few years. So I shouldn't say none because I don't know about their transfers, but they don't have a lot of postseason experience. So that too should be a little bit of an edge for the Aggies. And look, I mean, they got smoked last year in the first round, really weren't competitive against UCLA. And there's enough returners on this roster, including Calhoun and some of the captains, Falslev, Templin, Allen, etc., that they'd probably like to go out with a tournament victory. And, you don't always get that, as goofy as that sounds, right? So, like, I think they got a good chance to win the game. Again, they'd go up against an absolute monster in round 2. But that's like playing with house money at that point, right? Like, nobody expects you to win. I know it's embarrassing the way they lost to Purdue 2 years ago, but hey, you're playing on Sunday in the second round of the tournament. There's not many teams playing left. You got there, you won a game. Like, that's what your goal should be here. Win the game, and let's see what we can do on Sunday, okay? You got a puncher's chance. That's more than, 330 other teams in the country at that point have, and they trade spots with you, okay? So let's just see what we can do. I think it's certainly a winnable game. To be honest, I would actually, even though the Aggies are the 9 seed and Villanova is the 8 seed, I would actually expect Utah State to be favored. And if somebody's in here that has seen the spread, let me know in the chat there, because I think the Aggies will be favored. That doesn't mean much, and it's not going to be much. It'll probably be a 1 or 2 point spread, but it just goes to tell you that the odds makers and the people doing the power ratings and stuff think that the Aggies probably deserve to be seated a little bit higher over Villanova. So that's enough. But look, when that came on the board very early that they were a 9 seed, you kind of felt it was like doom for the Aztecs. They're not going to seed our champion, our double champion, in the 9 slot and then get another team in. It just wasn't going to happen. So the Aztecs get left out. Apparently, according to the graphic, I don't know that I heard it said word for word, but it seems as though they were the 3rd team left out. I didn't expect that. I would have been okay. It doesn't really matter. We're splitting hairs here. It's not a big deal. I would have been okay with like them being behind one of the 2 SEC teams, either Auburn or Oklahoma. Probably Oklahoma, I guess, although I would have been upset had either of them gotten in ahead of the Aztecs. Auburn's record was 17-16. So that's kind of like you have – if you're going to allow Miami of Ohio to get in at 31-1 because records matter, right? And I know the argument is Miami, Ohio doesn't belong in. They shouldn't have gotten in, blah, 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 okay? I will, believe it or not, defend them and say they should have gotten in, okay? I know they didn't play anybody. Fully aware of that, okay? I only watched them once. It was a good game, and it was their last regular season game when they clinched to 31-0. And they're a fun unit. They're not the most talented team. They'd probably lose in a best of 5 or a best of 7 NBA style playoff series where you rotate home courts or play them all in neutral. They'd probably lose that best out of 7 to our top 8, maybe 9 teams, and Fresno in the 10 slot would probably push them, maybe to the max. Okay. Like their Ken Pom ranking is the lowest ever. I'm sure it is. I haven't looked this up, but I'm going to guess their Ken Pom is the lowest ever for an at-large team. They're like a 10-point underdog in a playing game. As one of my buddies says, if you're a 10-point underdog in a playing game, you probably don't belong in a tournament. But the fact is, like, they went 31-1. They won all of their games. Okay. So I know it seems like weird for me to say this, but you kind of had to put them in. Okay. I don't mind it. Like, I don't think they're very good. They're probably going to get drilled by SMU, but I mean, they may hang around for a while. They'll have a huge home court advantage. It's like an hour away. They'll probably pack that place with Miami fans, and that's fine. SMU, I don't think, is very good. That's a team I actually thought San Diego State could get in over, was SMU. But anyway, I'm going down the wrong path here. My point being, and I don't even freaking remember what I was saying anymore, what my point is. But if you're gonna say that the records matter, and so you have to put a 31-1 team in, well, then the records should matter, and you shouldn't have Auburn as your first team out or second team out at 17-16 because the records matter. And I get it; they played a great freaking schedule. Okay, challenge themselves in a non-con like nobody else. They play in the SEC, who got 10 teams in. They got a number 1 seed in Florida. They got other monsters up and down the roster in the conference. Okay, I get all that. But the name of the game is about wins and losses. That's what you told us when you put Miami of Ohio in the field. So why is Auburn the second team out at 17-16? Get them out of here, right? Now, Oklahoma, I could stomach a little more. They made a really good charge down the stretch of the season. Their record wasn't horrible. It was not much different than Texas, to be honest. I didn't really dig into their schedule too much. But, that would have been a tough one to swallow had they gotten in over the Aztecs. But look, they're sitting home too, the same as San Diego State is. So the bottom line is, as I tweeted this out, and New Mexico didn't even make the first 4 out. I don't know who was the fourth one, Cal, or who was it? I don't even know who it was. But like I've said this several times, going back weeks now, as it was taking place, you just felt in those weeks at the end of February, the back half of February and the first week in March, those nights did us in. They did us in. We can't, the bubble sucked this year. Everybody knows it. Okay. It's horrible, awful, probably the worst bubble ever. I don't know that we'll ever see a bubble worse. Okay. And so if you couldn't get in this year, you really have no qualms. You don't have any qualms because you didn't do enough then. San Diego State, one bad loss, that's not awful, right? A bad loss to Troy, who's a tournament team, but you were at home, you're favored by 15. You should win that game. Okay. And if you did, you're probably in the field. But no big road wins, no big non-con wins. Not many big quad 1 wins at all. The opportunities weren't there, but it is what it is, right? Beat Baylor, beat Troy, don't lose at CSU, beat Grand Canyon at home. Like any of those results, and you're probably in the field. Okay. Too inconsistent far too many times throughout the year. And a lot of Aztec Nation knows that. Even if they're frustrated right now, they know that. Okay. Same thing for New Mexico. We've beaten that horse to death. Okay. Yes. Great effort at Utah State to close the regular season, and great job beating the Aztecs in the pit the week before that, or whatever it was, right? But you get swept by Boise, a team that finishes 6th in your conference, but loses in the first round, not even make it to the quarters. You get swept by them. You lose at home to CSU, who finished 7th in the conference. There was obviously the New Mexico State game early on, and then the toss up against New Mexico against San Diego State in the quarterfinals, semifinals. So you got to win one of those games and you're in all likelihood. All right. I know it's a tough pill to swallow. If it makes you feel any better, VCU was going to get left out too, they said, had they not won their conference tournament today. So you didn't want to be behind VCU because you beat them. They weren't going to get in either. Okay. And they did what they had to do. They won their conference tournament. Okay. Now, they didn't have to go through St. Louis, but they did beat a couple teams who were playing good basketball. And you couldn't do that. So, like, I want the teams to get in, but you know me, I call it like I see it. I try not to be a homer or buy it, whatever. I call it like I see it, and they didn't deserve to be in. They didn't. Now, nobody did really, I guess, because I don't know that SMU did either. But It is what it is. Okay. So disappointing on that front. We get one team in, and, with the teams that are leaving and the teams that are replacing them, the odds are obvious that it will be a one bid league next year and most years, as we all know, unless, New Mexico or Grand Canyon or who knows, UNLV or someone can build a monster and once in a while get a second bid in. But hey, look, it was a one bid league this year, and it was still a lot of fun to watch. Now, we know the entertainment value will drop after the change here in the roster, okay? And it's frustrating to go out the way that it did with this group of teams. And then you see a lot of, both fans within the conference of different teams, national writers were saying how, it just seems odd that the conference, which is ranked 6th by KenPom, behind the Power Four and the Big East, and ahead of everybody else, including conferences that got multi-bids, are all having 2 and 3 bids. Well, not all, but there's 3 of them, and we're only getting 1 bid. But look, that's the way it is, right? You're not going to go in there and say, well, we need to get a second Mountain West team in. Like I said last night, that was a possibility. Maybe they would say, maybe they deserve a second team. But look, credit to them for not doing that. Did I want them to do it? Of course. But that's not really fair to just do it that way either. Okay. So I think they did the right thing. It just didn't work out. It just didn't work out to get a second team in. And we have nobody but ourselves to blame. Poor non-con, poor scheduling, difficult scheduling, bad losses, too competitive, whatever. Okay. So we have one team in. And as I said for months now, and I've said for years on my pod, and it finally is coming home to roost and going to bite me in the butt now. It doesn't really bother me that much. Would I rather see our teams in? Yes, but I'm going to enjoy the tournament regardless. And I won't be as pissed when our teams lose on Thursday and Friday. Right. So I'm going to root for the Aggies like I root for everybody in the non-con. Hope they get a win. Hope we get another game to watch in the conference on Sunday, and we'll go from there. Right. All right. Let me run through the comments here, and then I will touch on some NIT and some other stuff. Vinny, Utah State 1.5. Okay, it makes sense. That's what I thought. Indiana, they did not choose to participate in anything. Yes, they bagged it. So that's what I figured. Utah State small favorite. Makes sense. We'll see how it gets bet, because sometimes that gives you some clues there too. Idaho 7 baseball. Is Boise going anywhere? You hope not. Haven't seen anything. So obviously they're not in the NIT. I actually thought they would go NIT. I think it's probably obvious now that they're going to go into the Crown. Okay. Although the Crown only has 8 slots, but I saw, and I didn't look at all of them, but I saw plenty of teams turning down bids to anything like Oklahoma, Seton Hall, Virginia Tech. The list goes on and on. I think Cincinnati was another one. I think the one team that I saw that was accepting a bid to the Crown was West Virginia. And so that leaves 7 spots left. I'm going to assume that Boise is going to take one, and maybe even Grand Canyon. And so, because the fact is, as we'll look at in a second here with the NIT, is that it's basically NCAA tournament or bust for Power 4 schools anymore. Okay. The NIT, even going back to last year and certainly the last few years before that, you've had half of the field would be Power 4 teams that just missed or just didn't make it. But like I said last night, that thing has lost its allure for several reasons. And now with 32 teams in this year, there's only 4 Power 4 teams. 4 Power 4 teams, and that's it. You have Cal and Wake from the ACC. You have Oklahoma State from the Big 12, and then Auburn. Credit Auburn. I'll give them credit. I know they were getting ripped. They're getting a lot of flack on a couple fronts. One, because they were almost trying to steal a bid as a hold on, I'm pulling up the brackets here for the NIT because I didn't really look at the brackets. I just looked at our teams. They were getting a lot of flack for trying to, what's the word I'm looking for here? Campaign their way into the field at 17 and 16. But look, they're just doing their job. They're trying to get in. The coach is trying to get his team in. They're trying to get in the way anybody else is. You do the same thing if you were in their shoes. So I don't think they deserved it, but I'm not going to rip them for doing that. They were also taking a lot of grief because Pearl's old man is in the CBS studio, which is goofy. And, he's been doing some pandering on their behalf. So they've been taking a lot of grief on that front. And I understand, but full credit to them for going into the NIT. They saw, I'm sure they know and saw all the other teams on the bubble that got left out. They pretty much said, like, no thanks, like, we're out of here. And so credit Auburn for doing that, okay? Because it basically is it's a mid-major tournament at this point, and the crown is likely to be the same thing too, okay? If you're not into big dance, that's basically, when the coaches get fired, if they're on the hot seat, when the players are transferring, they're not going to stick around to play in the NIT or the crown, which takes place like 2 weeks later. I hate to say it. So it's just the way that the landscape of sports is anymore. So I think you're going to see Boise announced tomorrow into the crown. I'd be stunned if they weren't. Yeah, Carson, the 2 losses to UNLV, that's exactly what I said. Yeah, 100%. I think you would have been really frustrated, though, if you would have won one of those and still got an 8 seed, because then you would have really – I mean, you guys, Aggie Nation thought you were going to get a 7 seed regardless. Imagine if you take one of those UNLV losses away and you really would have thought you were going to be a 7 and you had hopes for a 6 and you would have probably been an 8. So, I mean, I guess this is better for you mentally. Where did they end up? I don't know where they ended up. Lenardi said Utah State got screwed. Article posted on ESPN. Yeah, I mean, listen. Unfortunately, 304. Like, we know the drill here with the Mount West. Okay, always underseeded. And there was that thing last year that made the rounds close to selection day with the metric on with where the conference teams get penalized for playing at altitude and stuff like that. And so, and there's no representation on the committee, I don't believe, from the conference. So there's nobody to go to bat for them. It's just they don't have a very good reputation, right? So it kind of is what it is. It's unfortunate, but I just think that's not going to go away. And I don't know. Not going to cover football, Pizza Man. I don't know what I'm going to do. I might cover who knows what I'm going to cover. Little League Baseball. I don't know. College World Series. We'll see. I don't know. Joshua wants to expand to 96. That would make sure everyone is a 2-bid league. I mean, I disagree with that though, Joshua. Look, as much as I want our teams in, that just waters it down. Like, this is supposed to be for the teams that earned their way in. And our teams that didn't make it, they didn't earn their way in. I want them in, but they didn't earn their way in. Okay. Again, I don't want to keep rehashing all these points. And I know you guys had these comments before I started saying all this stuff, and I'm just getting to them now. But our teams didn't earn their way in, right? Like, they all had their opportunity to earn their way in, and they didn't do it. And it sucks, but they didn't. Okay. SMU didn't really either, and they lucked in. Sometimes you luck in because they need teams. But man, if you expand to 96, imagine some of the teams that are in this. You think it's bad with like an Auburn at 17 and 16. Like, now you're getting on the precipice of adding like teams that are under 500. Like, who the hell? I just don't know. Like, when you get down to those final few, like, I'm sure they would put some type of provision in where if you're a regular season champ of a league and you get beat, then you're in. So maybe that would add like 8 more, but you're taking like 28 more teams now. Okay. 28 more teams. And so you're asking for 20 more at large. I know the numbers when you compare it to like how the percentage of teams that get in that don't compared to other sports. I get all that, but man, like, I don't want to see that get watered down. Like, it was bad. It took me a while to come around to the first 4 stuff here as a purist and a traditionalist, somebody that's been watching this stuff for decades. Despite the fact that I don't look that old, I am. And so I've been watching this stuff for decades, and the tournaments always started on a Thursday. And now, they start to shove this other thing down our throat with these first 4 games. And it started as 1 like 20 years ago, and now it's 4. And I've come around to it, and it's fine. Like, it's a nice little thing. And before this year, we've had teams in it 4 years in a row. So it's benefited the Mountain West, right? But I just don't think you need to go any deeper. Like, the bubble is horrible this year. If you didn't earn your way in this year, you really don't have a case. I hate to say it. Welcome to the Power 4 postseason tournament. There's no doubt about it, right? I mean, we all see that it's just trending that way. It's done. Same in football. We get it. Ewoke, appreciate you. I thank you for all your participation in here, your support of the Lobos, and you coming in win or lose and being a part of the show. And I appreciate you and everybody else that's contributed all the time with that. Drew, you got some Mountain West power rankings for next season. You should have Hawaii up there pretty high. They'll be dancing. There's a Mountain West team for next year. How can New Mexico get a good out-of-conference schedule next year? Well, so here's the thing, and this is what you don't want to do. Are you willing to go play like a true road game at UCLA? Are you willing to play a true road game at Texas Tech? Are you willing to do a 2-game series with a neutral and a road game against Arizona State? Or, pick your other random Power 4 school, right? That's what you got to do. You have to do that because we know a couple things. They're not going to come to the Pit, and you need home games at the Pit for revenue. So it's not easy. It's not easy. Do I think Olin stays? I think it is probably 50-50, and I hate to say it, I think it might start slanting slightly opposite 50-50 and not in the good way, because I just have a feeling that there's going to be a lot more movement and the dominoes are going to, and the carousel is going to start turning and the dominoes are going to start tipping over. I think that's going to happen. And the more that any of that happens, the more opportunity there is for another job to come open, right? Like, let's just say Calhoun goes to Cincinnati. Well, then Utah State opens. So maybe they don't kick the tires on Olin, or maybe Olin's not interested in that job, okay? But maybe like another job, like we know BC's open, and I don't see Olin going for the BC job. I said that already. But like there's rumors that Bill Self retires, right? So, and I know there might be like an assistant there that they want to give it to, but that's also Kansas. And I don't know if that's the easiest thing to do, to turn over a job like that to an assistant. So maybe they hire somebody that's a proven winner from somewhere else. Well, then that job's going to open, right? Maybe Tad Boyle retires at Colorado. Okay. Well, then that job's going to open. Maybe X job opens here, maybe whatever. So there's a lot of stuff yet that's going to happen. And it's certainly not 99% like it was with Richard last year at this point, but I think it's slightly greater than 50-50 that he goes. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, Lobo. So I didn't really look at the matchups. Let's talk about these matchups. I actually do have a lot of comments in here, and I'm thrilled by that because I wasn't sure what kind of participation we would have tonight, because I was going through the matchups quickly to look at our teams, and I didn't even look at who we were playing. So the Lobos are going to play Sam Houston Wednesday night in the Pit. Excellent. Okay. So the people on the West Coast, the East Coast power players in the NCAA never see. Yeah, correct, Pizza. They don't watch those games. We watch them, right? You guys are out west. I'm not. I'm a sicko. I'm up watching them. Nope. Maybe they watch for a few minutes and then they go to bed. Of course, they're not up watching them. It's unfortunate, but Drew has it this way forget about losing personnel, because who knows about personnel at this point. You just have to make your rankings right now based on like the coaching and the program, right? What kind of NIL backing coffers do you have? Who's the coach? And there you go. So New Mexico, Nevada, Grand Canyon, Wyoming, UNLV, Hawaii, San Jose State, UTEP, Air Force. Yeah. You forgot UC Davis, although you probably did that on purpose, Drew. Paul, Aztecs fan, Aggies have lost 10 of the last 11 first-round games. Villanova, Big East basketball style. Yeah, they that win against TCU was the first one in a long time for the Aggies. There's no doubt about it. Z Mountain, 1.5 for the Aggies. Yes, San Diego State did reject an NIT bid. Now, I also, and I'll hit on that in a second. Grand Canyon turned down an NIT bid. They have not rejected postseason bids. So reading between the lines, right, the sharp that I am, I'm reading that as though they may take a crown bid. They opted for the crown instead of the NIT. And we'll see if I was right reading those tea leaves tomorrow. And I think since Boise was there last year, I'm sure it was a good experience for Leon and his crew to go to Vegas. I think there's some NIL rewards there if you win some games. And, you don't get a home game, but Boise doesn't need a home game. They're not going to draw a ton for a home NIT game. So they'd rather just go play in Vegas, right? And so that's what they do. Yes. So San Diego State turned down a bid. Like, that was always the likely outcome. Like most, they operate like a Power 4 school or a Big East school at the very least, right? We know that. Okay. They do that in mindset in terms of scheduling, in terms of a lot of things. They operate like that, okay? And so just like the other schools that turned one down, they turned one down too. Now, I think Dutcher's statement, it was classy, it was professional, and it basically said, like, we're banged up and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure there's some truth to that. We watched it yesterday, right? Like, Heidi's banged up, Bird's banged up, Harrington's banged up, Newman, whoever. There's not many guys that are fully healthy at this point of a season. But obviously, had they gotten selected today, they would have played. So it's hard to put a ton of stock into that. The bottom line is they didn't want to play in the NIT. You know, a little bit of them thinks they think a little bit beneath them. That's fine. But yeah, they chose not to play in it. And you had to expect they wouldn't do it. Like, that's not their standard. And that's fair. Okay. You got to respect that. And they were in a Final Four and a Sweet 16 in back-to-back years. So that's their right. 93 Ken Pom for Miami, Paul. Yeah, 93. I thought it was in the 80s or 90s. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. I mean, he played no quad one games. Now, it's tough because we saw somebody say a couple weeks ago that Steele, the coach, released like a list or something of 200 schools that he tried to contact to schedule him, and nobody would schedule him. So, like, it's tough because now, did Steele say we'll come to your place? And they still said no, or did he ask for a neutral? I don't know. I didn't read all of it. But yeah, I get it. If you're a Miami, Ohio fan or part of the program, it's frustrating if you try to schedule legitimately, and they don't come to play you, or they won't agree to playing you. So I don't know what to say about it. You know, it's like, it's tough. That's just one of those difficult things to say, right? Yeah. Z-Mount, not a fan of the Aztecs program. Pride comes before the fall. Well, look, we'll see how it goes for them next year. There's going to be a lot of turnover in that program, maybe some staff shakeups, and certainly I would expect some roster turnover as well, okay? A lot of guys could come back. I don't know that we will, and it's going to be interesting because, and I'm not even like talking about some of the guys like Bird and Gwath. I'm talking about the 4 guys that are freshmen and sophomores, the 2 Frosh and the 2 sophomores, Harrington and Simmons, and then DeGorville and Compton, okay? Like, those are 4 good building blocks. In the old days, those would have been guys that turn into like all conference guys, maybe not all 4, but definitely 2 and maybe 3 by the time they're juniors and seniors. They're all conference players in that program. But nowadays, like, out of that 4, like, what's the over-under on guys that come back next year in an Aztec uniform? It's no way is it 2.5, right? And 1.5, I guess it's 1.5. So you have to decide whether you think 2 of those 4 are going to come back. I would bet money against DeGorville coming back. I don't think he'll come back. And it seems like I've heard some whispers. I wouldn't count on Harrington coming back. So then you have Simmons and Compton. Are they both going to come back? I don't know, Paul, or any other Aztec fans in here. Do you have any insight into that? I don't see them. Maybe 1 or 2 of them at most. And then, you got to do a better job in the transfer portal than you did the last couple of years. You do. Okay. Your last hit in the transfer portal, I think, was probably Ledee. And that was a big hit. Don't get me wrong. But, it hasn't gone well the last 2 years with your transfer guys. They'll have Latrell Davis next year off of the red shirt, who practiced with them all year and is a shooter. And I'm sure he'll add to his game after not having played for a year and a half. But, we'll see who else they bring in. Steve says the Aztecs are pouting, not a fan also of the Aztecs decision. They rejected the NIT because of injuries. They're done for the year. Z says Lobos had to win at least 2 of those games I mentioned. Yeah, I mean, 2 would have done it. I think 1 may have, but I guess the fact that they weren't even in the last 4 out, maybe 1 wouldn't have done it. I've been saying the last 2 days all they needed was 1. Maybe that wouldn't have done it. I was saying that because, there was spots there for the taking, and none of these teams did it. Not just ours, but none of these teams on the bubble, none of them could do it. They just didn't do enough to, in other words, win enough games against good teams. And that's why we have the field we have. So, you're not surprised, J-Bomb. Utah State, maybe there's a better seed. Yeah, you're right. That's no doubt. The NIT is for the players than the fans, especially the seniors. Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you can get a home game. You can get a home game, that's great. The Goon Commanders here. Tough for your Aztecs, but they deserve it the way they played most of the season. That's fair, right? You believe Dutch and his staff will make the right adjustments going into next year. Hope the Aggies make a good run. Classy, Commander. Appreciate that. Yeah, I unfortunately, I don't like to be harsh on them only when they deserve it, but I do think that they were not what they needed to be for much of the season, right? That's a good point, Z Mountain. Nebraska played in the NIT last year, won the whole thing. Credit to the Huskers. And I think Miami, Ohio played deep into a postseason tournament too. So look, there's definitely something to that. There's no doubt about it. Even the Crown. No, it was the Crown, I think, Z Mountain with the Nebraska. I think Nebraska won the Crown last year. Maybe it was the other one, but there's something to that. That's a thing that goes back for years. The problem with that, though, is that the rosters turn over so much that there's very few carryover to the guys that were playing on those rosters last year to the ones that come back. I guess if some of those guys are coming back, it can help, but they don't always come back. So, what do I think about Dutcher avoiding New Mexico in the future? Not only does he say he's not going to play at altitude, but he doesn't seem to be entertaining to play neutral. Yeah, that's disappointing. Like, look, he's allowed to do, he's got that program to the place where he's allowed to do whatever he wants to do. I would obviously, and we as fans of that rivalry would prefer to see that being played. Now, I don't really get the fact that he doesn't want to play at altitude, being as though he still has to go to Boise, Utah State, and CSU, right? And he doesn't have to go to Air Force. He doesn't have to go to Wyoming, and he doesn't have to go to the pit anymore. But you have to, and I know that the elevation's not quite as high in those places, but he has to go to CSU and Boise and Utah State. Not massive elevation at Boise, I get it, but CSU and Utah State for sure. All right, way higher than the sea level that the Aztecs are at. So I don't get that, but again, his decision, totally fine. I don't understand why he doesn't seem to want to play on a neutral. I don't get that. I don't have an answer for that one. Don't know. But look, it's hard to criticize the schedule that Dutcher puts together, although I did plenty this year just because they didn't fill in all of their damn dates. Okay, that was my main gripe. And the fact that they played like one game a week for a month. That when they were the last team that had 3 games played, the last team that had 4 games played, the last team that had 5 games played. Like everybody in the country was at like 7 or 8 games and they were at 4 or 5. It was absurd. So, but as far as like getting games, they go into players era. They do this. They played Arizona this year. So it's tough to kind of critique what he's doing schedule wise, but first 4 last year, not in this year. I mean, they do need to look at some things. I don't know. Sick, you were pleasantly surprised with the NIT bracket. Not a bad field. Might bode well for its future survival. Yeah, because you have teams that are willing to play in it like Wyoming, UNLV. I'm surprised those guys got the call. It's obviously because a lot of teams turned down the bids. I'm glad they did. Sundance was on Twitter campaigning for a bid earlier today, and he got it. Great for him. Okay, because I didn't know that they would get in, but awesome for them. Same with UNLV. They are barely over 500, but it's UNLV. They have some name cachet, and good for them for getting in. I kind of figured the other few would get in because I knew New Mexico and Nevada had put in bids to host, and CSU was good enough down the stretch, and especially with teams bowing out, that they deserve to get in too. So I'm happy that they all got in. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, I don't think he's dismissive of New Mexico, Ruben. It is a premier matchup. I don't get that from Dutcher. I don't think he's arrogant in that way. I don't think so at all. Brandon, you don't think Boise will play tomorrow, huh? You don't think they'll commit to the Crown tomorrow? Interesting. Well, we'll find out. Maybe not. I assume that, especially on the heels of them playing in it last year. Maybe you're right. I didn't really even listen to it. Certainly, it was disappointing. So they would have had 4 days to make that decision from Wednesday night until tomorrow. I would assume the Crown probably has been having conversations for several days. Like West Virginia tweeted out the other day that they were going to accept the bid to the Crown, and several others said they weren't. So I'm sure they've been in contact with these teams, and they have a list of teams that are on their list, and then maybe they have some backups. That might include Grand Canyon. And when teams say no, then they go to the backups. I just assumed Boise would have said yes, but maybe I'm wrong. Not expecting an invitation for Boise, but you would take it. Okay, maybe. We'll see. Dallin says Aggies always get a seed or two lower than what they deserve. Unfortunate. Yeah, it's facts. Like, there's no way around it, and that, like I said, the only way to fix that is to beat Arizona on Sunday. That's it. That's it, Michael. One Mountain West team. Unfortunate, but that's the facts. One Mountain West team this year. Magoon, I agree with you. No on expansion. Absolutely. Yeah. What was I going to say? Yeah, the loss is down. You're right. They get seated lower. It's unfortunate. But yeah, beat Arizona, right? I know it's a tall mountain to climb. If you win Friday, you're going to be freaking 12-point underdogs, something like that, maybe even 13 or 14. I have no idea. Nobody's going to give you a shot in hell, but upsets happen all the time. Go freaking play your arse off. Have one of your guys go bonkers from deep, like MJ did in the MTE. You got to defend and rebound like crazy. Maybe you get a break. I don't know. But, yeah, Z-Mount, you're not in favor of expanding it either. They mentioned on CBS that seeding is based on predictive metrics, not actual in-season metrics. Yeah, see, this is where I'm out on that stuff. I stopped paying attention. Like, I have too many things rattling around in my brain. I can't distinguish what the hell that stuff means. What is freaking predictive metrics? Like, that stuff, that's beyond me. So I'll let those guys handle that and put it in simple terms for me. I honestly have no idea what that means. Yeah, I don't know. Conference champions should all play in a 64-team bracket. The playing game should be for at-large teams. Well, so the thing is, though, Z-Mountain, is that, I see what you're saying. So, yeah, I kind of agree with that. I do kind of agree with that. The 16 seeds shouldn't have to play in. All 11 seeds, all 8 play-in teams should be the last 8 at-large. I wouldn't hate that. I could get on board with that. Tim says saw that he had an average net of 116 or somewhere in that range. How much better is that without Air Force or San Jose State? Yeah, there was a Lobo fan today quite adamant about that. Yeah, yesterday and today, really, when making his case for the Lobos, that without those two teams, I'm sure 10 points higher, 10 spots higher at least for all of our teams if those two aren't in the conference. But again, it is what it is, right? I've said for weeks now and months that the conference has an Air Force problem. It's not going to impact half of the teams that are leaving anymore, but it will impact the rest. It's not super. San Jose State was pretty down this year, and they weren't great last year either, but they were in the actually they played in the NIT last year, so they weren't that bad. And they made the semifinals of the conference a few years ago. So they haven't been consistently horrible since Miles has gotten there. Now, if Miles leaves, it's going to go right back to where it was, which is in a toilet. So, unfortunately. Is the Crown? Yeah, I think Brandon Crown probably is better anymore than the NIT. It's way different, right? Like, it's only 8 teams now. It's in one spot. It's later in the season. It's basically like, so the NIT is going to start in 2 days, and it will run like kind of overlaps, which is goofy, with the NCAA tournament then in the second round. They'll play their first round Tuesday, Wednesday, and then next week they'll kind of wrap it up. And the Crown won't even start, I don't think, until after that. I think the Crown's like during Final Four week. So it's like not even 2 weeks yet, at which point players are gone. They want to transfer. So, but there is NIL funding for winning teams, as far as I know. I think most would probably think, but I don't know. Last year was the first year for it. They thought they billed it as like a postseason tournament for like a Big East and Big 12 and all teams of power conferences. And, nobody wants to, I don't say nobody, but those Power 4 schools don't care about that. If the Colorado job opens, Coach Olin will head to Colorado to reunite with Lovo. Yeah. So interesting. I just happened to throw Todd Boyle out there. The Lobos AD, Lovo, ironically, Lovo the Lobo, the ex-Lobo, left for Colorado's AD position a few months ago, and certainly would be familiar because he just hired Olin about 11 months ago, and if Boyle would leave, that would seemingly be a fit. That would really annoy Lobo fans, wouldn't it? New Mexico should schedule Miami, Ohio. Yeah, 100%. Why not? Why not? Do a home and home. I guarantee you, they would come to the pit if you would go to Miami, Ohio. The same as you did with VCU. Do it. Goon, you think Taj is more likely to stay than we think? Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's good because I just saw some things this year, body language, or so there were some issues. I don't know that like there's complete synchronicity there between his play and the coaching staff. So I wouldn't be surprised at that. Too many injuries for the Aztecs. Yeah, Bird and Gruner banged up all season, no doubt about it. So, Dre, you think that retention with the Lobos is solid this year? Your guys are playing for something more than NIL. They want to be coached and follow Olin. I do agree with that. Now, the key would be getting Bouillon an extra year. Do you think you can get an extra year for Bouillon? Haupt is gone, right? I believe Haupt is gone, and I believe Albury is gone. So if you get the extra year for Bouillon, obviously you keep Tenet and you keep Hall. Okay, that's a nice starting spot. Chol needs to improve his game. Howell will probably be back. Beyond that, we'll see. You got to hit the portal and bring some other guys in, obviously. But, yeah, DJ says if Taj leaves, Compton does too. They're besties. Okay. Doesn't surprise me. I didn't know that. Doesn't surprise me. Same with BJ and Gwath. If any of them leave, they might be gone too. Simmons, Heidi probably return. Latrell, Simmons, and Heidi return. Hope we don't lose any of them. Okay. Yeah, so it's like an all or nothing with them. I forgot about BJ. Like, I was assuming BJ would be back, and Gwath would not for one of a couple different reasons. I don't know. It just seems like it's a time for him to reset somewhere else, whether it's in the pros or the G League, or obviously he didn't help his stock this year. But, yeah, I don't know. Creamy. Tuning in late, what are your thoughts on GCU edition this year, and did their inclusion impact the Mountain West Conference bids? It's interesting. It's been a while since we've been in one big league. So, last night, and I'm just going to talk about this quickly for 1 minute because I'm at an hour. I know there's a ton of you in here, more than I thought, which says a lot for you guys, and I'm appreciative of that. I didn't even really talk about the matchups quickly for the NIT, which I want to, but I did mention this last night, Creamy, because there were some fans that were kind of like gloating over the fact that it's, GCU came in and now caused it to be one big league. It may be, right? Maybe it did, but I don't think that's a reason to say that we made a mistake by including them this year. Like, I don't think so, because you're not going to have a discussion in June and say, let's bring them in. And then on the other side, the argument is, well, if we bring them in, what if they beat one of our teams and we only get 1 or 2 bids in instead of 3 or 4? Like, that's a defeatist attitude and not a great way to look at things. Like, we shouldn't be trying to back in and like avoid teams, right? Like, this is the Mountain West Conference, right? Go freaking beat teams and earn your way in. Now, will you get in? Will you take it any way you can get it? Sure. Okay. I would have taken these teams to get in, all of them, any of them, all of them, right? But it's let's not, we shouldn't be trying to like say, I wish we wouldn't have played them. Sure, they swept San Diego State. They cost Utah State maybe a seed line. They cost San Diego State to get in, maybe, right? But again, they're not having these conversations and saying, well, let's not bring them in so we can get 3 teams in this year. Like, that's not happening. Like, they brought a good team into the league. They had reasons for doing it. Maybe not all of them were on the up and up, but the fact is, play the teams on your schedule. Don't shy away from it. And it is what it is, and let the chips fall where they may. And yeah, we didn't deserve to be more than a 1 bid league here. And GCU is just a very, very small part of that. That's my feeling. Do I think conferences like the Mountain West and PAC, along with many other mid-majors, will get less teams in the field because the NIL money will continue to create big gaps? I mean, that's it, Nathan. Like, you nailed it. Like, you just can't compete. Like, when I had talked to Kevin Sweeney, we've talked to other people, like the budgets, it's just not comparable. Even New Mexico and San Diego State, which have good NIL, it's just not comparable. And so you can get yourself a nice player or two. Boise paid up and got Dylan Andrews and Drew Fielder, but the depth is not there then. Like, these other rosters in the SEC and the Big 12 and the Big 10, they can trot out, $20 million rosters so that if 2 guys don't live up to the billing, well, they got other guys to replace them. It's not a big deal. And we don't. And if you don't spend the money wisely, you're really cooked. That's largely what happened with Boise this year, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad Wyoming got in too. They wanted to play. They deserved to play. They had a good year, and they're getting rewarded for it. I thought they were going to be cooked when the CBI folded. That seemed to be a natural fit for them. And when that kind of went belly up a few days ago, I was worried because I knew that Sundance would want to get in a tournament. Not first-year coach, second-year coach. They haven't been in for a few years. He'd love to get that team in there, and I'm glad it worked out for him. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it either, but again, it's hard to, the elevation thing might be a mental thing with them. I'm sure there's something to that. Don't get me wrong. It's not easy to run at 7,300 feet in Laramie. Okay. But yeah, they probably make more of it than is necessary. But again, it's hard to criticize Dutcher and what he does schedule wise, because it's worked, right? It got him in the tournament last year and it got them a 5 seed 2 years ago and blah, blah, blah. As the Aztecs, you need bigs that can hit the boards and guys that can play D and buy into the SDSU way. Well said, DJ. The D was lackluster this year. It just wasn't consistent enough. Rebounding killed us a lot. Yeah, 100%. Very accurate. You obviously know your team. Maybe the Aztecs didn't want to play an elevation team. That's possible. Make all the bubbly seeds play playing games. I don't hate that at all, Sick. I don't hate that at all. Hope Dutch does something with the offense. Paul says Dutch loves Simmons and Harrington. Most likely the top priority to bring them back. That's a fine place for me to start, right? We didn't get to fully see Harrington this year, especially in the back half of the season. Simmons showed great flashes. As I said 5 minutes ago, those are guys you keep them around. Those are all conference guys in the Mountain West, in the Pac, whatever it is, okay? You do need an offensive philosophy, DJ, 100%. NIL aspect is better, and for the Crown, you're saying. NIT should add some money to the mix. They probably don't have it, or they don't want to. Will Wyoming play Texas Tech? I don't think so, because didn't they play them last year too? I think they played them 2 years in a row. So I would not expect them to play again, Drew. Wow. Average net ranking of the Mountain West without Air Force and San Jose State would be 77. And it was 113. So forget about 10 spots higher. That's like 35 spots higher. That's wild. So if you don't think you'll be able to keep Bouillon, if that's true, if he gets an extra year, it's going to be tough to pay Bouillon and Hall. It's ridiculous to have to say that, but yeah, that's a good point. I knew Hall's brother was coming. Yeah, that's good, especially if he can play like his brother. Yeah, the NIT same time, that doesn't help the cause in the same city. Odd. You're welcome, Creamy. No problem. Thanks for stopping in with the question. Yeah, Glory going to 20 games last year didn't help. That did not help. And I know Dutch voted against it. Yeah, I know San Diego State was vehemently against that. Absolutely. Yeah, Boise had depth on paper, but it didn't play out that way. Yes. And the altitude is about conditioning. Yes, it is. Okay, since I can't believe I'm at an hour and 5 minutes, let me go through the teams that our teams are going to play in NIT for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to wrap this. I have it on this screen, so forgive me while I look down here for a second. I guess I'll hold the computer up here. So in the Auburn region, we have Nevada, the 2 seed. They're going to host Murray State. So what that means is if Nevada can beat Murray State, I saw a little bit of Murray State and followed them this year. They're talented. They don't play any defense at all. So we'll see how they travel. We'll see how they play at elevation. I'm not sure what kind of crowd we'll get. 10 Eastern on Wednesday on ESPN Plus. I guess I'll have to log back into that. And so 10 Eastern, Nevada, Murray State. If they win, they would host then against George Mason or Liberty. So I would expect them to be favored in both of those games. If they show up ready to play, they can win those 2 games and earn themselves a date likely down in Auburn later on down the road. So that will be interesting, right? Just get a couple more games in if you're offered in as guys, okay? Albuquerque region, Lobos hosting Sam Houston, as somebody said way back 40 minutes ago. Then they would get the winner of Utah Valley and George Washington. They'd have that at the pit too. And then hopefully, they're playing beyond that. Bottom half would be Colorado State, St. Joe's. So the Rams will host the game in Moby. And these are all on Wednesday as well. ESPN-U for Colorado State, St. Joe's. ESPN Plus for New Mexico. And then Cal is a 2 seed. So if Colorado State wins, they'd likely have to go to Cal on the second game. And then maybe if we're lucky, we get a rematch of New Mexico and Colorado State for round 3 in the final 8 of that. The third bracket that has no Mountain West teams is Wake Forest, Navy, Illinois State, Kent State, Yale, NC Wilmington, and Dayton Bradley. And then the last region has 2 of our teams. Tulsa is the 1 seed. They had a good year in the American. They host Stephen F. Austin. The 4-5 game is UC Irvine against UNLV, 11 Eastern on ESPN-U on Tuesday. So we got Mountain West team in action on Tuesday night, UNLV. We got 2 of them in action. Oh, my goodness. 7 Eastern, Wyoming, Wichita. I didn't even look at this yet. 7 Eastern, Wyoming, Wichita, ESPN-U, and then 11 Eastern, UNLV and Irvine. So we get a doubleheader with a game in between, 7 and 11 Eastern for me on Tuesday in the NIT. Oklahoma State's down there also. So Wyoming will have to go to Wichita. That won't be an easy game. Although I will say that Wichita just lost today in their conference championship game. So that could be one of those where they're not fully engaged 48 hours later, even though it's a home game. I don't know that you'll see a large student turnout for that game. I'll have to follow that on Twitter. That's a game where Wyoming will be ready to play. Sundance has been talking about it. He wouldn't have done that if his guys didn't want to play. So I think they could go down there and win that game against Wichita and then get themselves a game against Oklahoma State likely in the second round. UNLV, same thing. Look, Irvine just lost late last night, really late in the game. It was a tie game or 2-point game. And they kind of just gave up in the last 40 seconds and lost to Hawaii and didn't get the auto bid. And so I don't know if they're going to really care about this, and we'll see. But we'll see what UNLV shows up here. Okay. It wouldn't surprise anybody in here right now. Any of the 55,000 people watching, kidding. If UNLV wouldn't show up, right? That would surprise nobody. But if they do, they could certainly win that game. And I mean, they could beat Tulsa, right? I'm not saying they will, but they could. So some interesting games there. Hope some of those teams can show well, right? I'll watch it to an extent. We'll see what else is on. I'm not going to watch it over or I'll watch it concurrently with a first 4 game, I guess. But all right, let me get through these comments here for a minute, and then we're going to get out of here. Is there a realistic scenario in which Air Force and San Jose are kicked or just leave the conference? I don't see. It's not going to happen with San Jose. It's not. And I don't know if it's going to happen with Air Force either, because the fact is, you got to remember, a lot of this stuff, this matters for football. And while they haven't been top of the conference lately, those two teams are fair enough in football. They're horrible in basketball. Maybe you remove you see if you can remove Air Force from basketball. I said that weeks ago. They need to do that. It's easier said than done, I'm sure. Okay. So I don't expect it to happen right now, but I think they'd be foolish to not start those conversations. Absolutely foolish to not have some type of conversation about that. Yes, absolutely. Nevada Auburn will be very interesting, Paul, 100%. If UNLV shows up, you think they get out of their pod. I hope they do, Sick, but let's flip a coin to see whether they show up or not, right? You pray to powers that be, bring the Pac and Mountain West together for a super conference in basketball. You know it's a pipe dream, but can you imagine be like a power conference? Yeah, it'll be damn close to it. It will be like the Big East. It'll be the Big East, the West Coast version of the Big East. You have Gonzaga, San Diego State, Utah State, New Mexico, as provided the coaching is there consistently at the top. You have secondary programs like GCU, Boise, CSU, Nevada, UNLV, hopefully, maybe, right? Am I missing anybody? I don't know that I'm missing any. And then whoever else, Wyoming, I guess that's really it from the Pac. So, yeah, it could be an awesome conference, but New Mexico and CSU have winnable paths too. Yeah, they do. I mean, the fact is, there's not a lot of teams on paper here that are better than our teams in this tournament, right? There just aren't if our teams show up to play. Auburn's an exception, but Pizza Man calling for a thumbs up for the channel. I appreciate all the comments and the thumbs up and the subscription and all of that stuff. Nevada matchup is offered against his previous assistant at New Mexico, Ryan Miller. I wasn't aware that he was. They were at Murray State. Cullen Neal and Ryan Miller at Murray State. Maybe I do remember that, but it's funny. I didn't put 2 and 2 together when I watched one of their games. I thought he did something goofy that I was kind of shaking my head at. That's kind of funny now that you mentioned that. Yeah, DJ, you know it. Sorry, Ruben, that's not happening. Teams left because they didn't want to be around the teams at the bottom. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, they're quad 3 and quad 4 games. San Jose, Air Force, UC Davis. And it doesn't bring any value. Yep. But maybe I would have been in favor of that, the relegation, right? Like a 2-tier thing where you win, you stay up in the upper half, you lose, you fall down to the bottom half. Yeah, Mount West is an opportunity to make the NIT a West Coast tourney, no doubt. Well, I'm not surprised that they never invited San Jose State Raynard. Okay. All right. I got to get out of here. I've gone longer here than I go on most of my shows when we have games to talk about, but I guess that's part of the fun, right? There's plenty of stuff to talk about. That's what makes this stuff fun. Do I think any team could go independent like Notre Dame in football and be successful? No way. It'd be too hard to schedule during non-conference time. Or I'm sorry, during conference play, when everybody else is in a conference, it'll be too difficult for you to get games. Not every team is going to want to schedule when they have an off day, right? And not every conference even has off days. So you'd really be up against it in January and February scheduling games. So no way. I just don't, that's not going to happen for anybody. Okay, we're going to give Sun Cruiser a shout out one last time. And I guess you can go subscribe still at Mountain West BNN down there. So if this is the end of the road here, I love you guys. I appreciate all of you being here consistently, in and out, night, good night, bad night for your team, up, down, all that stuff, good, bad, ugly, whatever it might be, to chat, throw the comments in, support, all that stuff. It's been fantastic. I'm going to miss it. I won't miss being up to all hours of the night continuously, but I will miss the interaction, talking about the games. I love doing it. That's why I can't shut up and plan to talk for 35 or 40 minutes here. And now we're at 75 minutes. So that's wild. But you guys obviously don't mind that, or you wouldn't be here. So I appreciate you doing that. But again, maybe we'll be back with a Sunday episode. Probably not going to be in during the week. Maybe we're back Sunday after a Utah State game. Either way, we'll see. Keep the subscriptions, the notifications on, all that stuff. Thanks, Drew. Thanks, DJ. All the appreciations there. Yeah, shout out to Circa and Sun Cruiser. Appreciate that. You too, Dowan. Yeah, we'll see. Stay tuned. Stay tuned, all of you guys. Vinny wants me to go live. We'll see what happens, okay? You'll be here. I appreciate all you guys. Listen, that's what has me come on and do a show tonight and maybe Sunday too. We'll see how it goes, okay? No promises, but maybe we'll get something going for Sunday as well, okay? But Aggies have to win Friday first, because I definitely I'm not going to come on Friday, because listen, I want to watch the rest of the games. They play in the middle of the day. I'm not going to come on, and then it's too late. So I don't think that's going to happen Friday. So let's get a win Friday so I can do a show Saturday. Is that a deal? If they win Friday, I will come on and do a show Sunday. Okay. So that's a deal. All right. Aggies win Friday. I'll say that right now. Aggies win Friday. I will come on Sunday and do a show at some point. It might not be right after their game, because again, if they're in the middle of the day, I will want to watch the rest of the games on Sunday night. But after the game, the last game goes final Sunday. If the Aggies played Arizona Sunday, I will come in and do a show. All right. Aside from that, we'll see what happens. Stay tuned, as they say. Stay tuned. But once again, appreciate all of you being here. Can't thank you enough. It's been a blast, and we'll catch you somewhere else down the road. Enjoy the tournament. Enjoy the madness. Go Aggies. Root for the teams in the NIT. Maybe in the Crown as well. We'll see what happens there. Let's see what else goes on around the country here with our coaches, players, transfers, all that stuff. It's interesting to follow. And I'll be here to talk about it somewhere. Okay. And we'll see, but appreciate all you guys. Catch you again. And thanks for being here. See ya.
Get ready for the time of your life at Circa Resort and Casino, Las Vegas's newest destination for fun, featuring the world's biggest poolside tailgate party with 3 levels of action, 6 pools, and a 143-foot screen. The fun is always on deck with all the games all year long. Stadium Swim, located in downtown Las Vegas on Fremont Street. Book the time of your life today at circalasvegas.com.